Hey, so I'm about to do my workout this morning, but I never thought I'd be doing this. I try not to get involved in any discussions or political, religious, whatever, but some things are just like, you can't help it. So obviously it's about the mass shooting, and I posted this on my Facebook already. I'm going to put this up here. Okay. And I responded, like I said before, to a post about the massacre in Texas. And I'm not going to get too much into it. And I told people, I'm getting comments on the Facebook group I posted on in response to someone who felt like this is enough. And then the woodwork start coming out. And my point of view comes from, I didn't just study science. It was exercise science, physiology, kinesiology. I also was a religious studies minor, and I went through Catholic school for like almost a decade, and was raised Catholic. I studied that Bible, and like I mentioned to people, if you're going to thump the Bible, you better have read it. Don't cherry pick, because that's always your narrative. And I'm going to respond. I'm going to read the responses I made, but it's always deflection with you people. You call yourself children of God, but then everything goes back to the same pain points, because you know that's your only narrative, your only argument when it comes to reasoning and thought. And I could do a whole video on how everyone's wrong about the Bible, and that it's just a book written by man 1,000 years after the death of Christ. That's another video, and I won't get into that. So what I have here, okay. And then if you don't like it, fine, move on. You don't have to agree with me. It's America. You can move on. Okay. This gentleman responds that it's because, I'm going to paraphrase because of the length of the video. He says it's because we don't have God in schools. It's because we glorify pornography. We glorify abortions, and we make it too easy for people to kill babies. And it's like, it's always this deflection. And my response to him was like, okay, coming from a religious studies minor, and there's a lot wrong with your statement. And he talked about the fear of God. Everyone misconstrues this, the fear of God. The fear of God is not God like doing stuff to you. The fear of God is you'll do something so horrible he'll never speak to you again. That's the fear of God. That's what God-fearing people comes from. People get that wrong usually. Number two, he talks about the entertainment industry and said entertainment and pornography have nothing to do with this issue. Again, the self-appointed righteous Bible thumpers who haven't actually read the book like to tout that it speaks about morality when the issue is about access to firearms. Nice deflect. And it's always their deflection, right? They always deflect. They throw that out at you. It's about Jesus, and we don't love Jesus, and that's why, that's not it. That's just a deflection, because you can't answer the question properly. And then two, that was what two was. Three, I assume you're referencing abortion. He talks about killing babies. Again, this has nothing to do with the issue. Now, it's going to get controversial. If you don't agree with me on this, that's fine, but don't argue with me about it, okay? I'm just touting some facts here. A nice try to deflect from the real issue as typical of Bible-thumping, self-righteous morality police. Not to get too deep into that subject, and I won't. You're talking about a medical procedure that is necessary many times. I won't get into that subject heavily, but abortions were practiced in biblical times. There's references in the Old and New Testament. It was a method of population control. Basically, if a woman became pregnant at the wrong time of year, and this is true, the baby would have been born in a harsh winter, and there would have been no way to take care of that baby, and it would have died. It was the same in early colonial America. They had to time their pregnancies. Look it up. I'm not lying. Okay? I'm not fucking lying about that. So, I get into him here. My final point, my brother is a professional gunsmith. He is. He can make some guns. He would only make custom weapons. He puts it like this: I make some great weapons, but I have the ability to choose who I make those weapons for. If I don't like why the person wants me to make that weapon for him, I won't do it. In Florida, and yes, it is Florida, if someone goes to a gun shop and decides they want a weapon, but the owner says no, they can go right down the street and get it from someone else. That's how Parkland happened. if you think about it. If a gun shop gets in a fire, this is in Florida, and there's been arguments that there's digital records of gun sales, but literally in Florida, if you have a gun shop and it gets destroyed, hurricane, fire, whatever, your records are lost because there is not a database. There may be an electronic record of you purchasing that gun, but the records are kept on paper. In fact, the ATF is still on a paper format because they're severely underfunded. That's why we have some of these issues too. No one funds the ATF, and they use paper files. They haven't even caught up. So if things get destroyed, you just fill out a form, state of Florida, and you're forgiven, and you start over. And all those records that you may have had about questionable gun sales, gone. It's a fact. People argue with me about it, but it's a fact. He made a good point here. He says owning a gun is a tool. It is not a toy. In our culture, as I told this person you mentioned, we have toys that model guns. We have games that glorify shooting. But none of you Bible-thumping right-wing fucks make a big deal about that. You will let a child take a toy gun and run around and pretend like they're shooting people. And you don't wonder what that could do to them. Would you let them do that with a machete? Would you let them do that with any other sharp weapon? Of course not. Only here in this country do we allow children to pretend and play with what we should be using as a tool, but instead we glorify it and make it like a fun toy. Before you ask, yes, we're both Democrats, but that's not the issue. The issue is common sense here. It has been less than 10 days since another mass shooting by an indoctrinated, albeit an adult, very young adult. He was also 18 years old, by the way. There's a common connection here. I mean, a little over a week. And you're going to tap out that Bible and say it's our fault for not following Jesus Christ. Stop using religion. This has nothing to do with your God. This has to do with the ease of making laws that benefit people to harm others. And again, to get into the mental issues, there was another comment, it's a mental issue problem. Why is it still so easy for them to get that weapon and go through the loopholes? Both instances in the last 10 days are 18-year-olds. 18 fucking years old. I was 18. I didn't think about anything about just what my next plan was. I wasn't thinking about shooting people. Maybe they have mental issues. Maybe they got problems. Also, Parkland, 18-year-old. Easily walked in, bought that gun that fits the loophole. Okay? Fits the loophole. Buy it, purchase it, walk out. In the case of Parkland, the gentleman who went into one gun shop was refused. And like my brother said, he was able to go to a gun shop right down the road and purchase that gun anyway. And yes, for the asshole who says, well, it's a digital record. Well, yeah, it's a digital record of just the sale. Doesn't tell you anything about that person. Doesn't tell you they went through 3 gun shops before and they were declined because the owners felt uncomfortable. It doesn't tell you how, their patterns. It doesn't do that. It doesn't red flag them. We have a digital sale over anything on Amazon, whatever. I buy something, as long as it's with a card, even if it's cash sometimes, there's a record somewhere. Okay? But there's no red flagging when it comes to buying these weapons. And why so easy to get these weapons? I used to work at Kmart when I was a teenager. Now, mind you, I was 17 after Hurricane Andrew, selling weapons at the sporting goods section. I was supposed to be 18, but they kind of forgot about that. And I remember, it was 1992, and I would go and have a gentleman come in, and he wanted to purchase a gun. Now, Kmart had the policy, we had to call it in, the state had to approve or not, but we had the right to refuse the sale of any weapon, especially in Homestead, Florida at the time, because of the way things were with Hurricane Andrew and the destruction. We actually had the military come in and establish control. We had to have martial law because it was just chaotic, prevented those mass shootings that could have happened. Okay. Now, if you want to look at it that way, this gentleman was drunk off his ass, wanted to buy a rifle. And I was like, I can't sell him a rifle. But the manager says, look, you got to at least run his info, but you have the right to refuse it. And then he left for the day and left me to do that. So I called the state. Now, when you call the state of Florida at that time, it was on a phone, actual landline, and you give them their social security number, their name. And I think that was it. You didn't even have to give them their address because that was kind of fluid. Just those 2 things. And they would tell you yes or no. Just like that. Yes, you can sell it to him. No, do not sell it to him. And that particular person, I got absolutely hell no. He should not even be looking at a weapon right now. Please ask him to leave your store. That was the first time in the whole year I worked there, hearing that from a State Department telling me, do not even let him look at the gun. I was like, okay. I hung up and I told the person, well, they said no. And he said, without a beat, I just got out of prison last week. I should be able to get my guns. I have my rights back. And I had to remind them that, it's federal law that convicted felons cannot buy firearms. Legally, that is. Doesn't mean they can't buy them off someone on the street. I didn't tell them that, though. So my point is, that was that little checkpoint, and it kept a lot of people safe. Shortly thereafter, in the mid-90s, things were, changed, obviously. And I found out that that wasn't even required anymore. As long as they had a pulse and they had a social security number or whatever, you could sell that gun to them and they walk out. You can be 18 to buy those firearms because handguns are classified as weapons, whereas the rifles are classified as hunting tools. So the AR-15, they get classified as a rifle. That's why you can be 18 to buy an AR-15 and cause mass destruction. 30-06, people don't think of it as a serious thing. 30-06 has a bolt, let's say, a slug like that big. If that's meant to kill a deer, okay? So yes, that's a hunting tool, but when you use it on people, there's no saving them. You put a hole that's too big, there's no way you're gonna stitch that person up. And you're gonna tell me that it's because it was a hunting tool, and no, fuck that shit. Fuck that shit, stop saying that bullshit. It's because it's easy to get and they found a loophole, this will cause the damage I need to do. They didn't shoot deer, they shot little 10-year-olds, little 7-year-olds. Those bodies were destroyed if they hit them with a slug from a 30-06 or from a AR-15. Fuck you people. If you think that it's just about rights, oh, fuck you if you think it's a Second Amendment. Fuck you all if you think that way. Leave my fucking page right now and don't even come back. I don't give a fuck. I won't argue with you about it. You don't agree with me, just fucking leave. Because I am tired. I am fucking tired of this bullshit. So, that's it. I'm going to go work out and, start making some changes because this is bullshit at this point.